revealed. This incredible shower habit could hiddenly raise your stroke risk by 48 overnight. Tom stood under the steaming spray of his morning shower, the comforting warmth swirling around him. Just like every other day, this was his sanctuary, a moment of peace before the hustle of life began, a routine that felt as solid as the ground he walked on. But today was different. A sudden sting shot through his chest, sharp and insistent, cutting through the steam and tranquility like a knife. Panic erupted in his heart, a primal fear that his duties as protector and provider were being snatched right from under him. "Julie," he gasped, his voice barely a whisper, as he stumbled out of the shower, water trickling down his heavy frame. His wife, Julie, heard the distress, her eyes flying open with worry. The usual hustle in the heart of a small Midwestern town turned into chaos as she frantically dialed for an ambulance, her hands shaking, her voice quaking with fear. Their daughter, Mia, stood frozen in shock, unable to comprehend the sudden shift from their comfortable routine to this terrifying new reality. The sirens wailed in the distance, but in that moment, silence weighed heavily in the air. What had initially been a simple morning ritual now carried the heavy taint of anxiety, shaking the very foundation of their lives. Tom felt the walls of his world closing in. How could something so harmless, something as routine as a shower, bring such peril? Soon, Tom found himself confined to a hospital bed, heart racing, struggling against the rising tide of uncertainty. As he lay there, he dove headfirst into research. Every article proclaimed alarming connections between everyday habits and strokes. He learned that this routine, beloved and mundane, could be deceptive. The stark facts shattered his perception of safety. There were hidden dangers lurking beneath the surface of their community's all-American charm. He spoke to neighbors, and discovered untold stories, silent battles that defined their lives. The single mother working 3 shifts just to afford rent, the elderly couple facing mounting medical bills, all smiling through their struggles. It felt like the very American dream was rotting at its core, disguised beneath the picturesque lawns and warm hellos of Main Street. Tom's heart ached, unsure of where to channel his newfound knowledge. Would this awareness strengthen his family, or would it fracture the trust they built in their tight-knit community? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The day of the community gathering arrived, and Tom stood at the front, heart pounding, palms sweaty. Faces turned toward him, hopeful and expectant. He felt a tremendous weight on his shoulders, paralyzed by the fear of rejection. But the importance of what he discovered coursed through him like electricity. Would they hear him? Just as Tom opened his mouth to start speaking, an unexpected voice rang from the back. Mia's voice, steady yet filled with vulnerability. "Dad, can we really change things?" It echoed through the stunned silence, inviting every soul in the room to connect with the reality that now stood naked before them. Would they step out of the shadows of denial and face the truths that loomed, or would those silent battles continue to rage, unacknowledged and unseen? Tom's stomach turned. This was the moment he had to decide how far would he go to protect not just his family, but the very community that had shaped their lives. Tom's heart raced as he stared into Mia's eyes, the little girl who had always looked up to him for strength. He felt the urgency in her question sinking deep into his bones. It was more than just a father-daughter moment now. It was a call to arms, a silent plea wrapped in the guise of childhood innocence. "Of course we can, sweetheart," he finally replied, the words momentarily soothing his own trepidation. He took a deep breath and searched the crowd's faces, hoping to find that spark of understanding in their eyes. But it's going to take all of us. We need to face the things we often keep hidden. But the room stirred subtly, parents shifting in discomfort, while older folks exchanged worried glances. Tom sensed the collective hesitation, the weight of unspoken fears lingering in the air. He could almost hear the creaking of the heavy doors in their minds, which were slowly closing against the harsh light of truth they desperately needed. "I want to tell you what I've learned," he continued, pulling himself straighter. "About strokes, about everyday habits that could be affecting us and our families." His voice broke slightly, but he pressed on as the faces of the good people he'd known for years shifted from curiosity to concern. One neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, aged but still spry, raised her hand hesitantly. "Tom, are you sure this isn't just scare tactics? We've always had our routines. Isn't that part of what keeps us safe?" A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Tom's heart sank briefly, but the urgency of the moment revitalized him. "I thought so too. But our routines can be deceiving. We can't just act like we're okay. We need to be honest about what is happening around us." "And what can we do?" someone shouted from the back, the voice heavy with doubt. "Talk," Tom said, searching for the right words. "We need to talk about the struggles we're facing, and not just pretend everything is fine. This community, our community, it deserves better than silence. We need to join forces and find solutions together." The crowd was silent for a moment. Then, slowly, faces began to nod in agreement. He felt a shift, a glimmer of hope in their shared willingness to confront the shadows that had settled over the community's spirit. Mia stepped forward, emboldened by her father's resolve. "We can start a group to share our experiences, support each other, and learn. Everyone has stories. Everyone has something to say." Tom caught her enthusiasm, feeling it ripple through him. Her courage ignited something in the others, as they began to murmur in agreement, the seed of change forming in their minds. This was the beginning. The cracks in the facade were widening. "Let us do it," shouted a man from the back, standing up slightly, emboldened by Mia's idea. "Let us open up and share." It's time we all joined in. As the chatter grew into a chorus of agreement, Tom felt a wave of relief wash over him. This was what he hoped for, the chance to forge stronger bonds, to shatter the silence that had plagued them for too long. But beneath the surface, Tom's heart sank slightly. Would awareness be enough, or was he merely igniting questions without answers? As they made plans to meet the following week, he wondered if the community was truly ready for the deep conversations that lay ahead. Mia's small voice broke through his thoughts. "Dad, will you help me lead the first meeting?" He looked down at her bright, hopeful eyes. Could he do that? Could he push past his own fears to guide them through the darkness? "Of course, Mia. Together, we'll face anything," he said, steeling himself. But in that instant, another thought crept in. What if their voices stirred up something they weren't prepared to face? As the crowd began to disperse with new energy, the question lingered at the back of Tom's mind like a cloud, heavy with unspoken truths. Would the community rally together, or would his call for action expose rifts that had long been festering beneath the surface? Tom sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the wall as the afternoon sun filtered through the curtains. Mia had been so excited after the meeting, her face glowing with hope, but as he replayed the events in his mind, the weight of responsibility pressed harder on his chest. The thought of what could happen if things didn't go well gnawed at him. Could he truly lead this community through the daunting fog of their fears? He picked up his phone, scrolling through articles on health, habits, and the impact of lifestyle choices. The statistics were alarming, and the thought of sharing them with everyone sent a shiver down his spine. "What if they don't believe me?" he muttered under his breath. Just then, his phone buzzed with a message from Mia. "Dad, can we practice what we'll say at the meeting tonight?" The innocence in her request tugged at his heart. "Of course, sweetheart," he texted back, but uncertainty bubbled beneath his reassuring words. What if he failed her? The evening rolled in, and they gathered around their small kitchen table, papers strewn everywhere. Mia, filled with youthful confidence, began to lay out her ideas. "I think we should each share a story about someone we love. Then we can talk about what we might change." Tom watched her, captivated. Her earnestness was infectious, but he understood the challenges they would face. "That's a great idea, Mia. But let us also be prepared for the hard stuff. We might hear stories that make us sad or nervous. Not everyone will want to open up." Mia nodded, visibly pondering this. "But maybe if we show them we're brave, they'll feel safe." "Exactly," Tom replied, trying to mask his apprehension. "We need to create a space where everyone feels comfortable." As they practiced, Tom felt emotions bubbling up: fear, anxiety, but also something deeper: hope. The chance to bridge the gaps and connect with neighbors he'd known for years, to share both burdens and victories. It was a terrifying and exhilarating prospect all at once. Later that night, as he tucked Mia into bed, she looked up at him, her big eyes shimmering with trust. "Dad, I want you to remember something. If it gets hard, we're doing this together. No matter what." The sincerity in her voice broke through his defenses. "I promise, Mia. Together, we can handle anything." But as he turned off the lights, unease settled in his stomach. What if they opened old wounds that had long festered? What if he couldn't provide the support his family and friends needed? The next day arrived with a mix of anticipation and dread. Tom gathered the necessary materials: papers with facts, notes on strokes, questions designed to provoke thought. He drove to the community center with Mia chattering beside him, her enthusiasm like a beacon in the murky water of his worries. As they approached the center, they noticed a small crowd starting to form. Faces he recognized, expressions blending curiosity and fear, stood before the double doors. Tom could feel his heart racing again, this time from apprehension. He shared a last glance with Mia, who returned a reassuring nod, drawing strength from her presence. "Okay, everyone," Tom said, trying to sound confident as they entered the room. "Let us talk about the things that really matter." When he saw familiar faces turn toward him, he realized that amidst the uncertainty, a flicker of hope ignited within. Maybe they could push through the hard conversations together. But before he could continue, Mrs. Henderson stood up. "Tom, we've trusted you for years. But what if this conversation goes to places we aren't ready for?" His heart sank. Her question echoed the very fear he'd been wrestling with. "Maybe," he began carefully, searching the room for understanding. "But we can't stay silent anymore. We owe it to ourselves to find out." The room filled with murmurs of agreement, but the atmosphere felt thick with tension. Would this reveal deeper issues, or lead them to unity? Tom took a deep breath, ready to share. But what he didn't know was that the most dangerous revelation lay just ahead, one that would test not only his resolve, but the very fabric of their community. "Let us begin," he said, pushing through the uncertainty. What would they uncover together? The room settled into an uneasy silence, everyone's attention trained on Tom. He felt the weight of their gazes, the stakes rising with each lingering moment. A knot twisted in his stomach, and he took a small step forward, heart beating like a drum. "Thank you all for being here," he started, his voice slightly shaking. "I know this isn't easy. I mean, how many times have we avoided talking about our health, about what really worries us?" Nods appeared around the room. He could see in their eyes that many felt the same tidal wave of anxiety he did. "Mia had a wonderful idea," he continued, glancing at her for encouragement. "Sharing our stories could help us feel less alone. But we also have to face some truths about our health." He pulled out a fact sheet he had printed. "Like this one, research shows certain everyday habits could impact our health in ways we never suspected. Tom looked around and saw a mixture of interest and skepticism. Then, he noticed the slight frown on Mr. Rodriguez's face, arms crossed tightly. "What exactly do you mean, Tom? What habits?" Taking a deep breath, Tom plunged into the statistics. There's this surprising link between common routines, like how you shower or what you eat after a workout, and heightened risks for conditions like strokes. Can you believe it? They say that something as simple as hot showers could potentially raise those risks by 48. Gasps spread across the room. It was one thing to talk about health. It was another to confront something so tangible and everyday. But why aren't we talking about these risks? Mrs. Henderson chimed in again, needling him with the intensity of her concern. "Because," Tom stumbled, "because it's easier to ignore than to confront and discuss. And I get it. It's uncomfortable. But this is how we start. We have to face these issues together." Mia's eyes sparkled with determination. "If we all share what we know, it can help. We can make sure everyone is safe." Several people muttered their agreement, but others looked weary, doubt clouding their expressions. Tom felt the resistance in the air, a brick wall against his hopes. What if they couldn't push past this moment? "Let me share my story," a voice emerged from the back. It was Janet, a retired nurse. Her frail frame was filled with trembling courage as she walked to the center of the gathered crowd. "I lost my brother to a stroke last year. It changed everything." The room hushed as she began recounting the small decisions made over a lifetime, skipping health checkups, ignoring warning signs, opting for convenience over well-being. Each word struck a chord in the room, and Tom felt the palpable shift. Janet's vulnerability laid bare the fears and regrets that many carried deep within. Tom saw it then, the power of their collective stories. Each shared moment rekindled a flicker of hope, rejuvenating the atmosphere. Like kindling igniting a flame, the testimonies began to flow, echoing Janet's honesty. He saw Mr. Rodriguez uncross his arms. "You know, my uncle died from a stroke. I always thought it was just family history." The fear began to transform into a spark of determination. Tom realized that perhaps these conversations could create something deeper, a sense of community and resilience they never knew they were capable of. But then, in the midst of revelations, a loud crash echoed from the back of the room. The doors burst open, revealing a figure panting and wide-eyed. "I need to talk to you all. It's about the meeting. It's more important than you think." Tom's heart dropped. What could it be? What secret could shake the foundation they were trying to build? The weight of uncertainty pressed down on him again, and he wondered if they were ready for whatever was coming next. Stay tuned, he thought. Now, more than ever, they were on the brink of something life-changing. The figure in the doorway was a young man, probably not much older than Tom's son. He wore a baseball cap pulled low, hiding most of his features, but the intensity in his eyes was undeniable. A collective gasp followed the crash, and the air thickened with tension. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt," he stammered, his breath hitching. "But I heard you all talking about health risks. You don't know the half of it." Tom steadied his breathing. "And who are you?" His voice came out firmer than he intended, almost a challenge, but it seemed to work. The room hung on to the newcomer's words, caught between curiosity and concern. Lucas Jensen. I live down the street." He paused, eyes darting around, before stepping fully into the room. "I used to work at the hospital. I found something, and it ties into what you're discussing. The shower habit you mentioned? It's not just about hot water." Everyone leaned forward, questioning gazes now fixed on him, the previous voices of sharing momentarily suspended. "What do you mean?" asked Mia, her excitement bubbling beneath her concern. Lucas swallowed hard. "There's a research group. Some doctors I used to work with, they stumbled upon a connection with certain soaps and body washes. ingredients that can lead to health issues over time, chemicals that gradually build up in your system. And when combined with other factors, like high stress or a poor diet, it can be catastrophic. The room erupted with whispers and darting looks, fear mixed with intrigue. Like what? Mr. Rodriguez demanded, climbing back into the conversation, anxiety flaring in his voice. Lucas took a deep breath, as if gathering the courage to spill everything. They've seen spikes in certain compounds that accelerate inflammation, all from common products we use every day. Even things labeled as natural aren't safe. It's not just strokes, but cardiac issues and chronic fatigue too. Tom's heart raced. This was turning into something bigger than he imagined. He exchanged nervous glances with Mia, both feeling the weight of the knowledge rolling into their intentions. Why haven't we heard about this? Janet's voice was a powerful tremor, pulling attention back toward her. They don't want us to know, Lucas replied, a fierce determination brightening his expression. The big companies control the information. They think we want to take action if we stay in the dark. But I know people need to hear this. A wave of uncertainty passed through the group. Tom felt the knot in his stomach tighten again, but something else flickered within him, a determination. What do we do? Someone finally asked. It was a simple question, but the power behind those words shook Tom to his core. We talk, Lucas said, his voice echoing in the suddenly charged room. And we tell everyone we know. Education is our only weapon in this fight. As Tom looked around, he saw the dawning realization spread among the group. Eyes that were previously glazed with fear were now lighting up with purpose. Let us begin a shared list, Mia suggested, her voice rising above the gathering excitement. We need to document what we learn. The products to avoid, safer alternatives, everything. The atmosphere shifted. A surge of hope washed over him, an energy he hadn't felt before. This was just about sharing fears. It was about action, about a community rallying together for something greater. But then Lucas interrupted, his voice dropping to a bare whisper, heavy with urgency. There's more about specific brands that you should be very cautious of. If I share this, it could change everything. Tom's pulse quickened. What more could there be? What truths lay hidden in the shadows, waiting to be unearthed? As the urgency of the moment enveloped them, Tom realized they were standing on the edge of a cliff, peering into an abyss of information that could transform their lives forever. How deep did this rabbit hole go? They needed to know, and more importantly, they needed to act before it was too late. Lucas's eyes darted around the room, searching for allies among the anxious faces. Tom could see that Lucas was wrestling with the weight of the information he held. It was clear that every second counted, and each person in the room felt the urgency pulsing in the air, charged with both fear and determination. What do you mean by specific brands? Tom asked, his voice barely above a whisper. It felt like the room had held its breath, and all attention converged on Lucas. He took a step closer, lowering his voice even further. There are everyday brands, ones we trust implicitly. They're using additives that have been linked to serious health risks. It's not common knowledge, but internally. Lucas hesitated, gathering his thoughts. There's a reason for those allergies and chronic issues we always dismiss. It's not just bad luck. Mia leaned in, her brow furrowing. Can you give us names? We need to know what to avoid. Lucas nodded slowly, but uncertainty flickered in his eyes. I can and I will. But understand I'm risking a lot by sharing this. These corporations? They don't like people disrupting the status quo. Aren't you already in deep trouble from your past job? Someone blurted. The question hung heavy, punctuated by a wave of tension. They all knew the risks involved in taking on strong forces. I'm not afraid, Lucas replied, fire igniting in his voice. What's scarier than the truth? Living a lie. These toxins accumulate over time. You think you're fine today, but what about tomorrow? The numbers don't lie. Tom felt a cold shiver run through him. He had spent years trusting labels, believing what was printed in fine print. Suddenly, he felt like a deer caught in headlights, grappling with discomfort he never signed up for. "What is your plan if you go public with this?" Janet asked, her tone soft yet firm. It felt like everyone held their breath, waiting for Lucas's answer. "If we move fast, we can hit them where it hurts. We need an online platform, build a community, share experiences and information. We can rally people around this. If we create a wave of awareness, we'll demand accountability." The room buzzed with a mixture of excitement and fear. "But we have to be smart about this," Tom interjected. "We can't just charge in blindly. We need proof, testimonies, studies, anything. How can we take this wherever it needs to go?" Lucas nodded, urgency threading through his voice. "I can reach out to a few contacts who have data. We can analyze products, find what's lurking in the labels. But we need to be organized. A list is a great start, but we need a campaign too." Mia was already scribbling notes, her determination unwavering. "Let us all meet again tomorrow with ideas. We'll each research, talk to friends, inspire them to join us. They deserve to know the truth." "It's going to be hard," Janet cautioned, her voice steady. "But if we put our minds together, we can really make an impact." Tom felt the pulse of determination grow within the group. Hope flickered brightly, banishing the shadow of despair. As they began to exchange ideas, something strange occurred. The atmosphere began to shift. There was a growing sense of purpose that transcended the fear they felt just moments ago. They weren't alone anymore. They were a community of fighters, stepping into a battle that had long been ignored. Then, just as things seemed to be falling into place, Lucas hesitated, glancing toward the door. "There's something else. Someone is watching us." The excitement in the room stalled abruptly. Tom's heart raced as a chilling thought slithered into his mind. What if they were not just battling ignorance, but something darker? Who lurked in the shadows, waiting to strike? "Who?" he asked, voice taut with apprehension. Lucas's eyes narrowed, determination mixed with fear. "Someone who doesn't he want this getting out?" As the weight of the unknown settled over them, a question hung in the air. Were they ready to face whatever was coming? Lucas shifted uneasily, his eyes scanning the room as if the very shadows could take form and reveal their secrets. The air thickened, and Tom felt an instinctive rush of dread prickling at the nape of his neck. This wasn't just about corporations anymore. This was about their personal safety too. Mia was the first to break the stifling atmosphere. "We can't let fear paralyze us. If there is truly someone watching us, then we need to act smarter. We can't just wait for them to come for us." Her voice was steady, threading courage into the fabric of their fear. Tom nodded, already spiraling through possibilities in his head. "We need to be cautious. If they're monitoring us, they'll know our next moves." He glanced around at the faces of his friends, now allies in a fight bigger than any one of them had anticipated. "We should keep our plans off social media, even our phones. Let us meet in person, out of sight when we can." Lucas took a measured breath. His fire had tempered into a focused intensity. "Agreed. I can reach out to my contacts without using any digital footprints. We'll rely on in-person meetings. And we'll have to use code names for our campaign. It will help keep us under their radar." Janet, who had been quiet, suddenly leaned forward. "What if we use a private message forum? Something that doesn't involve big tech to avoid flagged words? We could create a small, secure group and only invite those we trust." "Good thinking," Lucas approved, the flicker of relief crossing his face. "We can limit the group to those in this room for now, and vet anyone else if we decide to expand." As they mapped out their strategy, the urgency in their voices began to drown out the creeping fear. They huddled over a table, scribbling notes, voices low but filled with passion. Every idea felt like a small battle won against the looming darkness. Suddenly, the rustling of something outside the door made them all freeze. The chatter halted, and for a heartbeat, the only sound was the collective inhale of 7 breaths held tight. Tom's heart raced in his chest. Had they been discovered already? "Did you hear that?" Mia whispered, her eyes darting to the door, as shadows danced just beyond their view. "I'll check," Lucas murmured, and before anyone could protest, he slipped out into the hallway. The tension was palpable as they waited, anxiously shifting, glancing at one another. Moments stretched unbearably as Tom's mind raced. What if Lucas didn't come back? What if the threat was tangible, passing through their existence like an unseen monster? Just as he reached to grab the door handle, Lucas returned, a concerned frown etched deep on his brow. "It was nothing," he said, but the uncertainty hung between them like a thick fog. "But we shouldn't stay here for long. Let us split up and head home. Tomorrow, we'll meet at the park, early at sunrise. It's secluded, and we can plan without worries." "Right," Janet said, but her voice trembled slightly. "So, we're really doing this?" "Absolutely," Lucas assured them. "But remember, stay vigilant. Trust your gut." As they all gathered their things, Tom glanced at each face. A mixture of hope and fear reflected back at him. They were stepping into uncharted territory. Each whispered conversation about additives and hidden dangers felt more relevant than ever. But then another thought hit him. As he stood to leave, a chilling realization settled in. "What if they're waiting for us?" he whispered, voice barely steady. "What if they know where we'll be?" The question lingered like a specter, highlighting their fragile resolve. They were no longer just fighters, they were targets. With every step out of the room, Tom understood that they had set off a countdown. Tomorrow would be their first real test. Would they be able to face the shadows creeping closer to them, or would their fight fall to those who prefer them silenced? In that moment, doubt flickered through Tom. Were they ready for this? Would their unity be enough to shield them from the storm brewing in their wake? And as they exited into the night, the sense of impending confrontation loomed larger than ever. The morning sun broke through the trees, casting soft light over the park where they had agreed to meet. Tom arrived early, his pulse still racing from the previous night as uncertainty. He scanned the area, half expecting to see looming shadows. But the park was quiet, serene. Birds chirped overhead, and a gentle breeze rustled the leaves. Mia came first, her expression a mix of determination and anxiety. She reached him, her voice barely a whisper. "Did you sleep at all?" He shook his head. "Not really. I kept thinking about what Lucas said. Are we really prepared for this?" "You mean the risks?" She glanced toward the gravel path, visibly unsettled. "We've taken this leap. Better to know what we're up against than hide from it." A moment later, Lucas arrived, his steps brisk, eyes bright with purpose. "All right, team. Let us regroup and finalize our strategy. I don't want to spend too long out in the open." Janet and the others trickled in, their faces a mosaic of hope and fear. They formed a tight circle near a worn picnic table, the sense of camaraderie creating a small bastion against their growing dread. "First off," Lucas started, his voice steady, "we need to lay out what we know so far. We talked last night about staying off the grid. What have we figured out?" Tom swallowed hard. "We know they're watching. That's why we have to keep our conversations close to the chest. Let us keep it to just this group, for now. What if they've infiltrated already?" Janet's voice cracked. "What if we can't trust anyone outside this circle?" "Then we handle it if it comes to that," Lucas replied coolly. "Let us turn that fear into action. Start with what we know, lay it all out." As they took turns sharing snippets of information, the atmosphere shifted. They began to uncover the intricate web of lies they had been tangled in all along. The corporation's operations were deeper than they had imagined, intertwining with local businesses, feeding off the community's trust. With every word, a sense of urgency grew, wrapping around each of them like a cloak. Tom felt the weight of the decisions looming ahead. This wasn't just about their safety anymore. It was about the lives impacted by their silence. Suddenly, a distant sound interrupted their discussion, a low engine rumble. Every head turned in unison toward the park entrance. A dark SUV ambled down the lane, slowly. Tom's heart raced. Was this just a coincidence, or had they been targeted already? Stay calm, Lucas urged, but the tension in his own voice was hard to mask. We can't show fear. Tom's instincts kicked in. Let us split up. If they're really here after us, we can't have all our eggs in one basket. Mia, you take Janet that way. Lucas, you and I can head toward the woods. If they come, we need eyes on all angles. Every instinct screamed at Tom, and with a quick nod, they scrambled in different directions under the cover of trees, hearts hammering. The SUV parked, and a figure stepped out, all business and shadows, scanning the park like a predator. Tom ducked behind a large oak, his breath caught in his throat. This is it, he thought. This is where it all shifts. In the underbrush, his phone vibrated, and a sense of panic surged. He had turned it off for safety, but now it was a reminder of their digital footprint. It could give away their position. Holding his breath, he glanced back at Lucas, who was peeking from behind another tree, his expression tight with focus. The other group appeared to be hiding skillfully too, but the figure from the SUV was now heading their way. The stakes had never felt higher, and the game of cat and mouse had truly begun. How far would they go to protect not just themselves, but the community that was now part of their fight? As adrenaline coursed through him, Tom wondered, could they navigate this maze of exposure and betrayal? Or would shadows emerge from the darkness to consume them whole? Tom's heart pounded in his chest, a chaotic rhythm echoing the urgency of the moment. He stole another glance, the figure from the SUV still lingering near the picnic tables, scanning the park with a hawk-like precision. Sweat formed at his temples as the sunlight flickered through the leaves, creating dance patterns on the ground around him. Stay low, he whispered to Lucas, who nodded, eyes narrowing. They crept further behind the tree, seeking shelter in the dappled shadows. Tom could feel the weight of the world pressing down on them, the mission that had spiraled beyond their expectations now feeling more daunting than ever. He exchanged a glance with Lucas, a shared understanding of the stakes ahead. Meanwhile, in the distance, Mia and Janet hid behind a thick cluster of bushes. Mia glanced at Janet, who looked pale and terrified. "We'll be okay," she whispered, striving to instill confidence. But her own voice trembled, the fear palpable. "Do you think it's really them?" Janet asked, her eyes wide. "What if they know we're here?" Mia shook her head, forcing a brave smile. "Then we have to be smarter. We can't let them disrupt what we've started. Remember what Tom said about the community. We need to protect that." As they watched the figure move closer, the tension wrapped tighter. It was hard to breathe, the air thick with anxiety. Suddenly, the man turned, revealing a sharp jawline beneath dark sunglasses. He seemed almost too polished, too professional, a stark contrast to their ragtag group. Tom's mind raced. "What is our play?" he whispered to Lucas, who was already scanning their surroundings. He felt the walls closing in, panic threatening to take hold. But Lucas maintained his composure. "We might have a chance to dart to the left. Those trees provide cover." Before he could finish, the man in sunglasses pulled out a phone, fleetingly glancing around like a predator honing in on prey. Heart sinking, Tom pressed a finger to his lips, urging Lucas to silence. Then, incredibly, the man spoke into the phone, his voice clear, though a distance away. "They're here. I'll need backup." Backup? Tom thought. The weight of impending danger crashed over him. They had underestimated how deeply this had infiltrated their lives. Turning to Lucas, Tom gripped his friend's arm. "We need to move. Now. And we need to warn the others." Before they could react, the man pointed toward their direction, a sinister smirk emerging on his face. "Got you," he mouthed, as if they were already trapped. In that instant, adrenaline surged anew. They had to get out. They couldn't let fear paralyze them. "Go!" Tom shouted, breaking cover and sprinting toward the trees. Lucas followed, but from behind, they could hear the SUV's engine roar to life, the sound chilling in the open air. Branches snapped underfoot, the world around them a blur. Tom could barely think beyond escape. The woods were darkening, the shadows lengthening around them, but he refused to succumb to despair. As they barreled through the tangled underbrush, Tom calculated their options. They needed a hidden place, somewhere they could regroup, somewhere they could find answers about the threat that loomed. What if this was just the beginning? Every option felt like a gamble, each decision a potential disaster. Suddenly, a crashing sound made them freeze, hearts hammering with fear and anticipation. "Get down!" Lucas breathed, pulling Tom behind a thicket. Holding their breath, they listened closely. Footsteps approached, fast and heavy. It was near, maybe just feet away. Tom stared at Lucas, their lives hanging in the balance, wondering what would happen next. Were they truly ready for everything that was unfolding? What choice would they make when confronted by the shadows of their own creations? The next moment would define their future and possibly their very lives. The world shifted into slow motion as they crouched together, breaths held, hearts pounding in unison. The footsteps grew louder, echoing around them like a relentless drum, an unmistakable reminder of the danger creeping ever closer. Tom felt every hair on his body stand on end, a primal instinct screaming that they were being hunted. Then, suddenly, the footsteps stopped. A heavy silence blanketed the forest, thick with tension. Tom could hear Lucas's shallow breathing beside him, thick with fear and uncertainty. With frantic determination, Tom peered around the thicket, straining his eyes to catch a glimpse of the figure pursuing them. Just then, a voice cut through the silence, tinged with menace. "I know you're out there. You can't hide forever." It was the man in sunglasses, and his tone sent chills down Tom's spine. "Come out, and this can go easier for you." "Easier?" Tom whispered fiercely to Lucas, pushing panic down inside him. "Nothing about this will be easy." "They might have a weakness," Lucas murmured back, eyeing the direction of the sound. "If we stay quiet and think this through, we can turn the tables. They won't know we're here. They'll underestimate us, thinking they're in control." With one deliberate decision, they began to inch backward away from the sound, a careful, synchronized retreat into the deeper woods, where the trees grew larger, older, thicker, as if they could shield them from prying eyes. The very act of moving filled Tom with determination, a silent promise to keep his family and friends safe. As they navigated through the dense underbrush, Tom's mind raced with thoughts of Mia and the others. Were they okay? Were they in hiding, waiting for him to come back and lead them away from danger? He couldn't let fear overwhelm him. He had to be their rock. Suddenly, another crash broke out from behind them, and they froze once more. "Did you hear that?" Lucas whispered, barely keeping his voice steady. Tom nodded, tension coiling tighter in his chest. They were running out of time. Without thinking, they turned swiftly into a dense thicket, hoping the thick foliage would help conceal them. The air was heavy with the smell of damp earth and pine, and for a moment, they were just two friends seeking refuge, relying on each other to outsmart the untouchable life-threatening that awaited outside. After what felt like an eternity, Tom heard muffled voices in the distance. "You two aren't going anywhere." The voice taunted, full of confidence, knowing they were just beyond reach. But somewhere in that taunting tone lay assurance that made Tom shudder. They had to fight back. A thought sparked in his mind. Lucas, we need a plan. This is about our community now, our family. They can't continue to strike fear into our lives. Lucas's eyes flared with determination. We gather everyone. But this time, it's about sharing knowledge and strength. Let us be smarter and expose them. Tom felt a fierce wave of hope flooding through him. Exactly. We have to regroup and inform the others about what we know. Knowledge is power, after all. Amidst the cacophony of uncertainty, determination solidified within him. They would share their stories, their truths, and they would take back that power. Let us head back toward the park, Tom said, a fire igniting in his heart. We can't let them destroy what we've built. As they moved cautiously, adrenaline spurred them on, weaving between trees and ducking away from the uncertainties lurking at the edges of their world. They burst from the cover of the woods, panting but resolute, racing toward the meeting point where together they would reveal the truth, share the fear, and ignite the flame of change in their community. When they finally arrived, the park stood eerily quiet, the sun blindingly bright overhead. But the air hummed with energy and expectation. They could feel it, the presence of others, companions who had braved the storm with him. Mia spotted them first, her eyes wide with concern as she rushed over, relief flooding her face when she saw her father safely return. "Dad, I was so worried," she said, throwing herself into his arms. "I'm okay, Mia," he said, holding her tight, heart swelling with love. "But we need to keep moving. We have so much to tell everyone." She stepped back, a fierce shine in her eyes. "We're ready. We're all set to fight back." One by one, the others began to emerge, Janet and Lucas leading the charge. Together they gathered in a circle, hearts and voices unified in purpose. Tom looked at each of them, a tight-knit family emerging from their struggles, ready to embrace this challenge. "We stand together," Tom began, his voice firm and steady. "Through fear and uncertainty, we find strength in one another. We've uncovered a truth that we can't ignore. Today, we're not just a group of individuals, but a community that fights back against shadows lurking in our lives." Murmurs of agreement echoed, and the spark of determination transformed into a burning flame. Lucas stepped forward. "We know what they're capable of, but we must share the information we have. We can't let them control the narrative." "Exactly," Mia chirped. "Knowledge is our weapon now." Tom smiled, his heart swelling with pride in his daughter and his community. "Let us uncover every truth, share every story, and stand strong together." Together, they launched into action, building their plan step by step. They sought the truth behind the brands, the safety of their homes, the shadows that loomed large, refusing to remain hidden any longer. The sun shined brightly that day, but more than any light, hope radiated throughout their community. They had banded together to stand strong, transforming their fear into resolve. The shadows that once haunted them receded, marching towards the dawn of a new chapter. And with that spirit pulling them forward, Tom knew they could face anything together. Fear didn't stand a chance when faced with unity, strength, and whispered stories now shared out loud. As they dispersed into the day, there was a collective resolve igniting in their hearts, a promise to fight the unseen dangers that swirled through their lives. Their community was alive, and together they would shield it from every shadow that lurked in the dark. Before long, they would be stronger than ever, ready to dismantle the structures that sought to harm. And with every shared story, knowledge found its way into the light, bouncing off each other as they embraced the force they had unleashed together. And with that powerful realization coursing through them, Tom couldn't help but smile. They were more than a community now. They were family, ready to take on whatever came next. So, to all of you watching this journey unfold, remember, you need to subscribe now to stay with us through these ongoing transformations. This is the moment to show your support by leaving a like. Comment your reactions and feelings about this stunning journey, And don't forget to share instantly with at least 5 friends who need to be part of this incredible change. Together, we move mountains. Don't wait not even one more second to support this channel and our collective fight.